1968. The Beatles were falling apart. John and Paul barely speaking. Yoko had arrived. Cynthia Lennon had just been left with a 5-year-old son who was watching his world collapse. Then Paul McCartney drove to their house with a song he claimed came to him in the car. That song would become the biggest hit of the Beatles' career. But the story of how Hey Jude came to be is far stranger and more emotional than anyone knew. Summer of 1968. John Lennon had just left his wife Cynthia for Yoko Ono, and the Lennon household was in chaos. Julian Lennon, only 5 years old, was caught in the middle of his parents' divorce, confused and heartbroken. Paul McCartney, who had always been close to Cynthia and Julian, decided to drive out to their house in Weybridge to check on them. During that drive, something happened. Paul started singing to himself, making up a song as he went. The original title was not Hey Jude. It was Hey Jules, a nickname for Julian. The song was Paul's attempt to comfort the boy, to tell him things would be okay, that he could take a sad situation and make it better. It was genuine compassion turned into melody. What makes this even more remarkable is the relationship Paul had with Julian. While John was often absent, touring or recording, Paul had spent time with the boy. He had played with him, talked to him, been something of an uncle figure. When the divorce happened, Paul felt genuine concern for how Julian would handle it. The song was not written for commercial purposes or artistic ambition. It was written as emotional support for a child. When Paul arrived at the house, he played around with the melody but did not immediately tell anyone what it was about. He later changed Jules to Jude because it sounded better, stronger, more universal. That small change transformed a personal message into something anyone going through pain could connect with. Paul did not tell Julian the song was for him until years later. The irony is thick. John Lennon's son inspired a song that John himself would later call one of Paul's masterpieces. John admitted he thought the song was about him, about Paul telling him to go ahead with Yoko, to not be afraid. The ambiguity of the lyrics allowed everyone to hear what they needed to hear. That was part of its genius. Did you know Hey Jude was originally called Hey Jules?
Hey Jude, yeah, yeah, yeah.
By the time the Beatles entered Trident Studios in London at the end of July '68, tensions in the band were at an all-time high. George Harrison was frustrated with being overshadowed. Ringo Starr would temporarily quit during the White Album sessions. John and Paul's creative partnership was fracturing. Recording a 7-minute single with a 4-minute outro of repeated phrases seemed like madness. Paul had the song mostly complete, but it needed arrangement. The decision to keep it simple at first was crucial. Piano, acoustic guitar, Paul's voice, no drums for the first verse. Let the song breathe, let the emotion come through before the full band kicks in. When Ringo finally entered on drums, it felt like a release, like the song was finally able to express its full feeling. The orchestration was where things got complicated. Paul wanted a massive sound for the ending, something that built and built until it felt overwhelming. George Martin, their producer, suggested a 36-piece orchestra. Not playing complicated parts, just filling in the sound, adding strings and brass that would swell underneath the repeated refrain. The orchestra was recorded on July 31st, and the session was unusual. The Beatles invited an audience into the studio. Friends, acquaintances, even members of other bands showed up to watch and participate. During the final extended outro, everyone was encouraged to sing along, clap, sway, be part of the moment. Mick Jagger was there, Keith Richards, Eric Clapton. It turned into a party, a communal experience that was captured on tape. The outro itself was risky. 4 minutes of the same melodic phrase repeating, with Paul ad-libbing over the top, the orchestra swelling, the energy building. Most singles were under 3 minutes. Hey Jude was over 7. Radio stations were not going to play it, or so everyone thought. George Martin was worried. Even some of the band members questioned whether it was too long. But Paul insisted. He felt the extended outro was necessary, that it gave people time to feel the catharsis, to move from sadness to hope. The repetition was not boring. It was hypnotic. allowing listeners to lose themselves in the sound. When the final mix was completed on August 8th, they had created something unprecedented, a 7-minute pop single that somehow felt too short. Can you imagine being in that studio with Mick Jagger and Clapton that night? During the recording sessions, something unusual happened. John Lennon told Paul there was a problem with one of the lyrics. In the second verse, Paul sang "The movement you need is on your shoulder." John thought it was nonsense, a placeholder line that Paul had not bothered to finish properly. He suggested Paul rewrite it into something that made more sense. Paul's response was immediate and firm. He loved that line precisely because it did not make literal sense. It was impressionistic, dreamlike, the kind of lyric that felt right even if you could not explain why. The movement you need is on your shoulder suggested something about intuition, about trusting yourself, about the answers being closer than you think. John disagreed, but Paul refused to change it. This exchange reveals something crucial about where the Beatles were in '68. In earlier years, John and Paul would have worked through disagreements, found compromises, trusted each other's instincts. By this point, they were defending their individual visions rather than collaborating toward a shared one. Paul was not interested in John's opinion anymore, at least not on this song. It was his composition, his message, his choice. Interestingly, John later admitted Paul was right. That mysterious line became one of the most quoted parts of the song. People interpreted it in dozens of ways, found personal meaning in its ambiguity. If Paul had made it more literal and logical, it might have lost that magic. Sometimes the best lyrics are the ones that bypass the brain and speak directly to something deeper. The disagreement also highlighted their different approaches to songwriting. John favored directness and emotional rawness. Paul favored craft and intuition. Both approaches had created incredible Beatles songs, but by '68, they were pulling in opposite directions rather than complementing each other. Hey Jude was pure Paul, and John had to accept that even if he did not fully agree with every choice. Do you think Paul ever imagined how big this song would become? Hey Jude was released on August 26, 1968, as a single with Revolution on the B-side. Immediately, radio stations complained about the length. 7 minutes and 11 seconds was unheard of for radio play. Some stations played only the first half, fading out before the extended outro. Others refused to play it at all. But something unexpected happened. Listeners demanded the full version. People wanted that cathartic ending, that extended musical journey. Stations that had been playing edited versions started getting calls requesting the complete song. Within weeks, most stations capitulated and played the entire track. Hey Jude was breaking rules and proving that audiences were ready for something beyond the 3-minute pop formula. The commercial success was staggering. The single went to #1 in the United Kingdom, staying there for 2 weeks. In the United States, it topped the charts for 9 weeks, becoming the Beatles' longest-running #1 hit. It sold over 5 million copies in its first few months, eventually becoming one of the best-selling singles of all time. The song that was too long for radio became unavoidable. The promotional film, shot at Twickenham Studios, added to the song's impact. The Beatles performed live with an orchestra and audience, capturing the communal energy of the original recording session. The video showed the band still together, still capable of creating magic, even as internal tensions threatened to tear them apart. For fans worried about the band's future, Hey Jude felt like reassurance. Critics were mostly positive, though some found the length indulgent, but the public did not care about critical opinions. The song connected on an emotional level that transcended analysis. It became an anthem at concerts, sporting events, moments of collective emotion. The simple instruction to take a sad song and make it better resonated across cultures and generations. Decades later, Julian Lennon discovered the song was written for him. Paul told him in the 1980s, and Julian was moved to tears. He realized that during the worst period of his childhood, when his father had abandoned him and his world was falling apart, Paul McCartney had been thinking about him, trying to comfort him through music. The relationship between Julian and Paul remained warm throughout the years. In some ways, Paul was more present in Julian's life than John was during that period. John's focus had shifted entirely to Yoko, and his relationship with his first son suffered. Hey Jude became a symbol of the care Julian did not always get from his actual father. The song's universal appeal meant it outgrew its origins. People going through divorce, loss, depression, any kind of sadness found something in Hey Jude. The message was simple but profound. Acknowledge the pain, but do not let it define you. Make it better. That optimism, coming from Paul's naturally upbeat personality, balanced the darker introspection that John often brought to Beatles songs. For the Beatles themselves, Hey Jude represented both a peak and a turning point. It was proof they could still create era-defining music together, but it was also created during a period when they were growing apart. The song's success could not save the band, but it gave them one more massive moment of unity before the end came. Do you think Paul's kindness changed Julian Lennon's life forever? A 5-year-old boy going through his parents' divorce inspired the biggest hit of the biggest band in history. Hey Jude was not calculated or market-tested. It was genuine human compassion turned into 7 minutes of cathartic music. Paul McCartney wrote it to comfort a child, and in doing so, created something that has comforted millions of people facing their own sad songs. The extended outro that everyone said was too long became the part nobody wanted to end. The single that broke all the rules proved that sometimes breaking rules is exactly what people need. When was the last time a song made you feel like everything might actually be okay, even when it was not? That optimism, coming from Paul's naturally upbeat personality, balanced the darker introspection that John often brought to Beatles songs. For the Beatles themselves, Hey Jude represented both a peak and a turning point. It was proof they could still create era-defining music together, but it was also created during a period when they were growing apart. The song's success could not save the band, but it gave them one more massive moment of unity before the end came. Do you think Paul's kindness changed Julian Lennon's life forever?